Hello everyone. Good morning. On behalf of Computer Science and Engineering Department, GC Patan, I would like to invite today's esteemed speaker, Mr. Sunil Kapadia, for the session on Hyperledger. He is visionary professional, leveraging more than 12 plus years of experience in architecting solution, DB designing, product ideation, integration expert, and providing out-of-box solutions. He is strong in designing AI-based solutions, defining business rule engines, and creating machine learning models. He has showcased excellence, aptitude as a capable business frontrunner in scaling, directing projects, and translating business needs. His expertise lies in combining technical expertise with strong acumen and operational understanding, ensuring technical strategies align with corporate goals. He has strong experience in work plan for team members, team leading, estimating change requests, preparing project status report, and project management. He possesses intuitive acumen in gathering, evaluating information for business and functional requirement documentation, reconciling conflict and ambiguities, and deconstructing high-level information into technical specification and workflows. Without further delay, I hand over the session to Mr. Sunil Kapadia to share his knowledge for benefit of all of us. Sir, you can start the session.
Thank you very much, Divesh. Good morning, everyone. This is Sunil Kapadia, and it was a long introduction to whatever I do. And let me just brief you about how I reached over this place and how I started. So I started after my graduation. I started to prepare like you guys on UPSC exams, GPSC and SSC examinations. I got selected as a custom inspector. I worked for a while as a custom inspector too. And I left that job because of some family and other issues. And since last 12 or maybe 12.6 or 7 months, 12 years and 6 months, 7 months, I've been like working in IT industry. I started as a normal developer, and currently I'm working in you can say next generation technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, IoT, augmented reality, virtual reality, and all. So today we are going to start. Yesterday you had a session about Ethereum, right? The public blockchain network. So today we are going to, you can say, understand the entire architecture of how Hyperledger works. What are the different, you can say, modules as what are different elements of Hyperledger Fabric, how to install on a Windows machine, and what are the use cases, what is the world doing in particularly this Hyperledger Fabric area. So just give me a moment. I'll share my screen. Can you see my screen? Any one answer is sufficient?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Payal, yesterday you asked me a question. So should I explain that question first and then move ahead?
Yes, it would be better if you summarize the Ethereum basics of Ethereum network and then move forward for Hyperledger.
Okay. So basically, yeah.
Or you can ask questions and let participants answer so that you can judge at what ground they are on right now.
Sure. Then I'll just ask a few questions. Can any one of you tell me that why blockchain is needed? Anyone? I mean, yesterday you had an entire day session with, I don't know the person's name, but with some expert from our world. So why do you need a blockchain? Because an entire history behind this entire evolution of technology. So मुझे सिर्फ इतना बता सक अगर कोई भी एक आप में से बता सके that why blockchain is needed. I mean, why the current technology is not able to solve particular piece of problem, and that's where blockchain fits in. Because that is how you understand why Ethereum Ethereum behaves like this, or why Hyperledger Fabric behaves like that.
So, sir, basically, we don't want any centralized third party. We
Okay.
just want everything to be on distributed network,
Right.
and everyone trust each other, even though they are not knowing each other. So,
Right.
first thing is we need to establish trust using some consensus mechanism.
Okay.
And then once the trust has been established, everything is transparent.
Okay.
No one can modify the data available on Hyperledger, so it is immutable. And
Right.
so it provides security in several of the sectors, which is
Right.
not available with the current technology.
Okay, and that's a wonderful, you can say, textbook theory answer. Now let me explain you in very, very simple language. Now, I'll take 10-15 minutes in this because that will give you an idea of how blockchain how blockchain came into picture, how accounting came into picture, and why there are two worlds in the entire blockchain world: public network and private network. So basically, in the beginning of human, you can say, mankind history, there was an island called Yap Island. Now, at that time, let's say the population of that island was 10 people. Now, at that time, also the concept of ownership was there. Now, so how do you like trade? At that time, there was no currency, there was no method of writing. So how do you trade? How do you finalize that? Okay, this property belongs to this person guy, or if the property A belongs to the person A, the property B belongs to person C, or something like that. So what they do is they try to memorize the entire people or the entire population of the particular island, hypothetically 10 people. So 10 people used to memorize that, okay, this one belongs to this one belongs to them, and the list goes on. Now what happens is if there is a dispute, then they will gather around and they will ask each and every one that, okay, who owns this property? So let's say there 10 people say that, okay, this person A owns this property or the rock A. So then dispute is resolved. Now what happens is the person C wants to own that particular rock A. So what will he do? He will try to pollute few members. So let's say he polluted 2-3 members. So now what happens is now 7 people are in favor of that, okay, this rock belongs to A, and 3 people are in favor of that this rock belongs to C. Why? Because they have changed the record in the beginning. Now there was no record prior because memories cannot be, you can say, used as a record. So that's why they cannot justify that whether they are right or wrong. Now that's where the mechanism of consensus took place. That if the total member, let's say there are 10 people, so if the total population divided by half, that means 50% populations agree, more than 50% population agrees to this particular transaction, then that particular transaction is valid. And that is the reason then any blockchain network is immutable in such a way that if a transaction happens which is not known to more than 50% of nodes, then the transaction automatically becomes invalid, right? So the point is when these things happen, these 10 people, that's okay. But when then they can memorize everything. The problem of solving, you can say polluting also we solved. But what happens when it goes to 100 people? What happens? It goes to 10,000 people, 1 million people, 100 million people. Not possible to memorize those many records for a human mind. That's where accounting came into picture, like single entry and then double entry, and then this entire process becomes centralized around banks. Now, I don't know whether you all are aware of that or not, but Chanakya started this double entry ledgers. Why? Because then only you can verify that, okay, whatever transaction happened in my account, maybe I deposited some money to some other person's account, maybe I received some money from his account or her account. So if the balance doesn't match on both the sides, the transaction is not valid. And that is how this thing solve that particular problem with single ledger entries. Now they come across this particular issue of centralized technology. As Payal said, that we are living in the world with centralized authority. Now what happened in centralized authority is the banks own everything. You don't know how, I mean, all of us who are not involved in particular day-to-day transactions or who are not having any sort of banking understanding, certain times we don't understand for what reasons bank charged us. Same goes with credit card. Same goes with every other financial institution. There is a centralized architecture in place. Now the point is, this is the strongest thing and this is the worst thing also. Now this is a single point of failure. If you go to a bank to get a registry in your passbook or to get an update in your passbook and the server is not working, you will not be able to do. Why? Because that is single point of failure. You go to banks, let's say that the country's internet is down, you are gone. I mean, you cannot do anything because all the servers, if the internet is working or internet is down, then nothing will work. That is an absolute you can say idea. But अगर एक दो लोगों का इंटरनेट नहीं चल रहा है लेकिन बाकी सबका चल रहा है तो भी you are not able to do any sort of transaction. Why? Because the servers are offline. So single point of failure. And that is why the idea of distributed computing in terms of the centralized authority to decentralized authority. Now, when you go to decentralized part, there is no authority. That means every node is a similar node, or you can say there is no bank or there is no financial institution. So maybe 10 years back, I'm not sure exactly the year, but Satoshi Nakamoto wrote a paper of decentralized finance, and that is known as Bitcoins in today's world. So yesterday, I believe you had a session about Ethereum. Ethereum is the second cryptocurrency which came into picture after Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has some flaws in terms of number of transactions can be held by a block and number of you can say all the time taken and everything around it. So they come with a different cryptocurrency that is known as Ethereum. Now Ethereum, in that the currency is known as Ether. The same way in Bitcoins, the current cryptocurrency is Bitcoin. Now the cryptocurrency is not a fiat currency. We all know we have been using fiat currency since probably our birth. So the point is, fiat currency is you can see that currency in your hand, but these cryptocurrencies you can't. There are just wallets, and you can have that money or whatever coins you have in your wallet only, and that's it. There are different kinds of wallets. I believe that you must be told about that in yesterday's lecture. Now coming back to this decentralized part, yesterday there was a typical question that if I deploy a smart contract on Ethereum, so and then if somebody is using that contract, then which node is supposed to be used or how that entire technology works. So let me just brief you about that too. So when you deploy a smart contract, when you create a smart contract, you always go for 3-4 networks like Rinkebai, Ropsten, Goerli. And once you test that using Ganache or any other tool which you prefer, once you do that, you tend to publish that into your decentralized database. That is your cryptocurrency database. So when you publish that smart contract is given an address. Now that is fixed. Now what happens after that? So you have to go to etherscan.io. Whatever smart contract code you have got back or you have received after deploying the smart contract, you have to paste that code over there. And then after a few minutes, it checks the contract and everything. And if it is a valid contract, you will get to know that the address and everything. And then you can interact with the functions you have written in that contract, like transfer money or something like that. Now, what happens when you interact with this? Now, directly, if you want to interact, then you have to design an interface, because that Hyperledger or Ethereum or any other blockchain network is not capable of handling UI. So what happens is you have to design either a website or a mobile application or a wallet. So through that, you can interact with particular smart contract you have placed over there. Now, when you interact using a wallet, then you are interacting the functions written in that particular smart contract. Now, again, coming back to the which node is going to be used, then whenever address or new block is registered in blockchain, every node connected on the entire network is updated. That means there is no client, there is no server. Every node is a client and every node is a server. So the data you are receiving, जो आप डेटा देख रहे हो या जो डेटा आप सेंड कर रहे हो, वो आपके ही मशीन के अंदर वो ब्लॉक क्रिएट होता है, एंड देन दैट ब्लॉक is broadcast to other nodes in the network using some endorser or any other node, whatever node or broadcaster node. In our case, it is an anchor node which does this gossip network and everything. So the point is there is no, every node is the same node. The reason is pretty simple. If one node dies out, one node is not functioning, then the particular user can delete the entire node and he can join again and he can just sync, and everything, whatever is there, even from his machine which is deleted, can be brought back. So the point is there is no central authority in the picture. Every node is a similar node. That means if you right now try to connect to the live network of Ethereum, you will have at least 20 to 30, I believe more than 30 or 40 GB data is already there over there. So if you are not using, if you don't have that much space, you will not be able to, I'm not sure about the figure, it may have reached more than 100 GB because I've checked last year. So more than 100 GB can be a possibility. The point is that much data if you want to sync. Now, every one of us doesn't have that much of resources available with our machines. So there is other way also. You can just sync the state of the transaction rather than the entire transaction details. And once you sync that with the using the Blocks Explorer, there is a DApp, that decentralized application, and you can even visualize, you can even check the block addresses based on the transaction address and everything, and you can inspect each and every block which you have synced. So the point is everybody can see everybody's transaction. The only point is they will be able to see only transactions between wallets, and they will not be able to see the owners of that particular wallet. So that's why you are anonymous, but as well as you are able to, you can say check your transactions, you are able to do the transactions and everything. And this is the important reason that our government was still against, few months back, they were still against this cryptocurrency, because then it will lead to transactions which are out of our government's control. That can lead to some, you can say, malicious activities and all. And that is the reason that even today, cryptocurrency is not a, you can say, an accepted currency for the countries. Like you can sell, buy Bitcoins, Ethereum and everything, but it is not an established currency yet. So I believe, Payal, I have answered your question. So
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. So now coming back to Hyperledger Fabric, now this is the different world of blockchain network. That is a private network. Now in public network, you just create a wallet, you using your machine or phone or whatever it is, and that's it. Your hardware address is merged with your some other numbers, and your wallet address is created, and you are good to go. You can transact on whatever you want to do. But with Hyperledger Fabric, that is not the case, because that is a private network. And why and whatever we are going to do or whatever we are going to learn, that will like prove that entire process from first end to the last part, that this is how it functions. So so what is blockchain is, already we have discussed that this is the technology, most fancy technology in like 2008, the number year is written, that 2008, the first transaction or first, you can say, introduction of blockchain happened to the world. But the word smart contract, which is the heart of blockchain, is not that new. The smart contract was written in 1994, or maybe coined by some scientist in 1994. So since that, the technology was in place, but the point is this was the first implementation in terms of Bitcoin, that okay, this can be done using, or this can be done using DeFi. DeFi is basically decentralized finance. So you can use this to have to you can say, minimize the usage of bank, or maybe particularly remove the usage of banks. Because anyways, when you go to cryptocurrency, to fiat currency, you tend to have exchanges otherwise, and exchanges are always connected to banks. Otherwise, that transaction will never happen. So the point is this is needed, and that is why I'm not saying that banks will be completely removed. Yeah, banks will be sidelined, and there will be no charges paid to banks. So that is how blockchain, or first introduction of blockchain in terms of Bitcoins, came into existence. Then, as we discussed earlier, why decentralization? So no centralized authority. Maybe it can lead to abuse of power. We have seen that in monarchy, because our history says that if a king is good for the people, then वो बहुत अच्छा रहता है, like Akbar and all. But all the Mughal kings were not good for our you can say country. So the point is, because it's a centralized institution, there is always a chance of abusing of power. But when it comes to decentralization, the entire piece is removed because everybody is same. So there is no authority saying that okay, I'm this one or I'm that one or I hold this position, so जो मैं बोलूँ वही होगा. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. And that is why decentralization is extremely necessary nowadays to add the layer of transparency which is missing in the current system, right? So distributed ledger, as we already discussed about it, what is a distributed ledger? Now, ledger is basically is an accounting term. So let me just explain you in a very, you can say, simple way. Then we must have used notebooks. So the pages of notebooks are connected. So these are the blocks. So that is the first example or very simple example of a blockchain, that every page is a block and every page is connected to the other page. That means the entire notebook is connected. So the entire piece of blocks are connected. How we will see in a while. So the point is, let's say if the pages in the notebook carry the same data similar to the you can say every page is similar, or once you fill that particular page you go to the next page, so the block is created. The same way in notebook also, the page once you fill in the entire page, you go to the next page. The same way block happens, then the limit, let's say 1 KB, 2 KB, 3 KB, 10 KB, 10 MB. Once the entire block is filled in terms of memory, it reaches to the next block. And that is how the entire blocks are created. And these blocks are connected using addresses. Now what happens? Why these notebook? Say, let's say I'm studying in standard 8 and I've lost my maths notebook, but my friend has that maths notebook. So I can just borrow that notebook and I can copy that entire data to my notebook. And that is how, if a node is, let's say node gets corrupt or node is deleted or node is in some trouble, he can always delete itself and then it again syncs and then it receives all the data back. So that is how the distributed ledgers work. Now, you have seen yesterday that public distributed ledger. So the public distributed ledger or public distributed network or public blockchain network, there are 5 possibilities. Anyone can join the network, read the data in the blockchain, write the data in the blockchain, create new blocks and publish to the network and add new blocks to the blockchain. So the point is, these are all same node activities. That means in public distributed ledgers, every node is the same node. You must have, you can say, heard about miners in yesterday's lecture. Now, miners is a different concept because in Ethereum, there is a, right? So I'll just discuss in a while. So in whatever public networks we have seen up to now, the entire set of examples are always centralized around cryptocurrencies or tokens. So they must be used for getting some money in terms of IPO. There is an ICO, initial coin offerings, right? So when you release an ICO, let's say you are releasing 1 million coins. So then your users who are interested, they can buy those coins and they can maybe, once the company grows, you can say the amount of that particular coin or particular token can be increased. The same way the share market works. Let's say if I want to invest in some in some company, then what will I do? I'll check the companies, that what company is doing, the company's background, the company's financials. What is the, let's say if they are working in solar energy, so maybe the next generation is all about solar energy. So I'll tend to invest in that particular company. Why? Because that gives me an idea that, okay, maybe the prices of share will increase in future for this particular company. The same way in ICO also the same way works. So somebody writes a paper, somebody has a new idea, and then if they try to sell that idea, they try to get the funding for that particular idea, right? Then private networks we are going to talk about that only today, private networks. And these private networks are restricted networks. Anybody cannot join to this network. The transactions are done only by selected participants. And the point is, when you say that it is a centralized technology or decentralized technology. Then this private distributed ledger technology is decentralized, yes, but among to a limited people. Now let me explain you why. Now if you are doing business, let's say you are producing TV, and what happens is your TV or your whatever you can say manufacturing process is there, your assembling process is there, your buying process is there, because you buy raw material from different places. Then you may, let's say you are making screens on, but the other parts you buy from other vendors. Then you make the screen, then you fit the all the parts you have bought from other vendors. Then you build an entire TV, and then you pass into your distributor, your suppliers or whatever, and then the suppliers, they are maybe you can say main suppliers, then they go to sub suppliers, and then they do go to final shops from where we can buy. Now this entire journey of making a TV from scratch, let's say from the raw materials to the end TV, is covered within this private distributed ledger. And that is why this only the entities involved in this entire business are able to join or are able to understand the process of networks, and that is the reason that it is called a private distributed ledger. So the transparency layers are added among the entities which are involved in this business. Let's say raw material suppliers, manufacturers, maybe sales guys or other whatever, and the sales guys, below sales guys, there are distributors, suppliers and suppliers and something like that. So the entities involved in a particular business are part of these private distributed ledgers. Now coming back to this again Ethereum part. So Ethereum is known as the world's first programmable blockchain. Again, it is you can say next version of Bitcoins, but it deploys a different security contract or standard, that is ERC20 coin. So it solves the problems, as I said earlier, कि जो पुराने issues थे with Bitcoins, those are completely resolved in Ethereum. Again, that ERC20 has also come up with its own set of issues, and that is why I believe they are working on ERC22. There is a latest security standard. So pretty soon we will see that too. So in Ethereum, the main part is Ethereum virtual machine, which is like a state management machine, and that is how you can publish the contract to Ethereum. Like we have already discussed, I'm just skipping few parts. Ether basically is the currency sort of whenever you do any sort of transaction, you have to pay some fee, and that is known as gas, right? So in terms of, let's say I want to send some money, so that money goes to a person B. Now the from A to B. Now the transaction needs 8 minutes to get recorded onto particular decentralized database. Now somebody has to approve the transaction according to our consensus mechanism. So what will happen? A quiz is released to the miners, and whoever solves the equation first will be able to broadcast the block. This is basically proof of work concept, which is very dangerous for our environment resources. और इसीलिए अभी वो लोग proof of work की जगह proof of stake पर काम कर रहे हैं, so that the entire network can be limited to a particular set of miners. And because this mining, if I want to register your transaction, I will definitely look for some money, and that's why the gas is distributed among the miners. The money of you can say the value of gas, and that is the reason everybody starts to mine. But the challenge over here is, let's say there are 10 miners and only one is able, because obviously the fastest will be only one. So the one will get the money, the 9 won't. But the amount of resources will be used will be there. And that is the reason this proof of work is extremely dangerous. If I'm not wrong, to mine a block in Ethereum, the amount of energy used can provide energy for a family for a month. So you can imagine that how much energy is used for that. And that is why they are migrating to other, you can say, mechanisms rather than proof of work. Then this is the thing which we are talking about in terms of Hyperledger versus Ethereum. So both designed with a unique purpose. One was designed in terms of running smart contracts in your EVM, in terms of consumed, or in terms of people can use that particular contract using wallets, using web, you can say web UIs, or using mobile applications. While Hyperledger particularly designed in terms of DLT, that is a distributed ledger technology. So basically what happens is, once you design a contract, you have, of course, again, it needs a UI to interact with. But the point is, it is not the same way you are using Ethereum or any other cryptocurrency network. In there, you are directly connecting. I mean, every organization which is a part of, or every entity which is a part of organization, they had to have some they had to have some infrastructure going on, or they can connect to the nearest one. That is how it works, right? And that is why it is private and it is limited to entities involved only. So mode of accessibility. So Ethereum is public, permission free, anybody can join. Anybody can download the entire Ethereum framework. You can explore all the blocks which you have synced. You can check that and everything is there. As I told you before also, the transactions are free to be seen by everyone. But the wallet addresses are anonymous. I mean, wallet address is public, but the owner of the wallet address is always anonymous. Then confidentiality, again, because it doesn't work on concept of permissions, what happens is you must have heard about, like in terms of Ethereum or Bitcoins, that somebody hacked the account, somebody transferred some money to some other account. That is by all means possible if you have not implemented the node with a proper security. But the only challenge over there is because the transactions are known to everyone. So if you transfer that money, the challenge comes where when you transfer money that through an exchange to get the fiat currency, it is not possible, because then you will be flagged. That address is flagged, that okay, this address, this account, particular account address is flagged, and that transaction will not happen. So even if you are successfully able to perform this activity, this hacking activity, you will not be able to get the money out of it. Of course, the party will lose it, but the one who did the hack will not be able to get the money, because it is not that easy to transfer to the fiat currency, because the address is already flagged. Programming languages. So Ethereum uses like Ruby, JavaScript, Python, Kotlin, C++, Go, and TypeScript. Go is also used for this one, Hyperledger Fabric also. So the consensus mechanism is proof of work, and over there cryptocurrency are like Bitcoins or altcoin or Ripple or this one, Ethereum, or all the other cryptocurrencies are involved. This is a basic feature difference between Hyperledger and Ethereum. The purpose of Hyperledger is B2B, that is business to business. For Ethereum is B2C, because it is business to customer entity. That means all of us. But here B2B becomes only the entity involved in the business. Then the transactions are confidential, but over Ethereum they are transparent. Those are private and permissioned. Over there it can be both private, but it is permissionless. Here it is a pluggable consensus, while there is always mining. Now pluggable, I believe you all understand what is a pluggable consensus. It is based on a pluggable architecture. That means you can pick up one consensus, you can say write down a contract. You want to have different consensus, you can do that. But with Ethereum, it is not possible. Either you go with POW or limited, whatever mechanisms are there. Then programming language is chain code is written in Golang, and smart contracts over there it is written in Solidity, like OpenZeppelin and all. And cryptocurrency. So as of now in Hyperledger Fabric, there is no built-in cryptocurrency because it doesn't work that way. For Ethereum, that is always there. Ethereum, or for Bitcoin, is Bitcoin or any other coin. Now, our today's topic in terms of, you can say, Hyperledger Fabric. So the Hyperledger Fabric was developed by this organization. And just give me a moment. I want to show that website to all of you. So let me share that screen. I believe my screen is still visible, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the Linux Foundation organization, which is the backbone, or who have, like with IBM, developed this Hyperledger Fabric, the entire set of tools. As you can see, this is the cost involved. These are the technologies or the people involved. 1.7 million professionals like us who believe in open source, who like want to contribute in this entire journey of blockchain, or maybe in other you can say parts. They are there. These are the main things they have developed up to now. This is automotive grade Linux. We all have cars, like the cars have tablets. tablets which are have like infotainment systems and all. So these infotainment systems are at the core governed by this AGL, right? Then this Hyperledger Fabric and Linux, of course, because these are the guys who have like released Linux, the open source, entire open source journey from the beginning. In contrast to Microsoft, where everything is paid and all, but recently even Microsoft started to have some things free. Now, if you go to projects, you will be able to see all the projects of whatever this institution is working. I believe you all should join this thing because I believe for academics it is free. You can join, you can keep a track of particular projects you are interested in. As you can see, there are many. And as it is open source, it is, I believe, as far as I know, it is free for academic institutions also. So you can use your email IDs, official email IDs, and you can join. Now, coming back to our Hyperledger, this slide. So this is the Hyperledger family. Hyperledger is the core name, and these are the distributed ledgers up to now developed by this family. Hyperledger Besu, Hyperledger Bureau, Hyperledger Fabric, Hyperledger Indy, Iroha, and Sawtooth. First is a Java-based Ethereum client. The second is a permissionable smart contract machine, EVM. So I believe this is you can use Ethereum with this. Then Hyperledger Fabric, which we are going to learn today. Hyperledger Indy, Hyperledger Iroha is more sort of mobile applications, and Sawtooth again specifically supply chain world is governed by this particular technology. Then certain libraries, certain tools developed by them, domain specific issues like Hyperledger Fabric, Hyperledger Grid, Hyperledger Labs, and something like that. So now the main thing that we have been talking about, blockchain, right? So blocks. So this is what a transaction looks like. Now, Payal in the beginning said that it is an immutable string. So I'll ask a very simple question. Let's say if a transaction recorded on blockchain, which is by mistake in private network also, by mistake, the value was entered wrong. So what will I do with that particular transaction? Any idea? Anyone? Because we said that it is immutable. Immutable means you cannot change that particular transaction. So any idea what can happen, or it is not permitted in blockchain?
You can create a new block with correct data and append it.
No. You are partially right, partially wrong. See, in blockchain network, people always come across this word immutable. That they have a frame. I mean, they have a mindset that this cannot be changed. But ultimately, we are the users of blockchain. So if we make a mistake, there has to be a way to recorrect the entire mistake or to correct the mistake. Sorry. So the point is, blockchain cannot allow update. Blockchain doesn't allow delete, but blockchain allows inserts. That means, as Payal said, it doesn't create a new block, it creates a new transaction. So what happens is the entire, let's say you wanted to give, I'm just talking about private networks. So you wanted to transfer 100 items to B. Now by mistake, you have transferred 90, or you want to add 10 more, or by mistake, the figure is 120 or something like that. Then you can change that number in the second transaction and it will be updated transaction in terms of final figure is 100. But it will not update the record in the database. It will create a new entry. That means from the beginning to the last entry, it will have a journey that, okay, previously this was 100 or 120 and now it is 100. So now figure is fine. That is 100. But previously it was 120. In normal CRUD operations, what happens within the update part? It gets overwritten. So 120 becomes 100. That means there is not a proof saying that it was ever 120. And that is how hacking is stopped. Because once a contract is deployed, you cannot change anything in the contract, in the database which is storing the contract, because it is the entire transaction is recorded using hashing. Now, I believe every hashing is known to everyone. It is a one-way function. And even hashing is done multiple times before a transaction is recorded into a block. As you can see, Here also transaction 0, then hash 1, and then it goes to transaction root, added some nonce, and then again the transaction block is created or the address is created. Now based on this block's address, the next is this one. So for this block, this is the previous block, previous hash. Now if any change in this record will change a new address, and this block will no longer be connected to this block, the block number 10. Right? So any change, any try to change in the record, that will happen if you try any sort of malicious activity. If it is a legal transaction, it will be accepted, but it is not a legal transaction, then it will produce a new address. As I told you before also that this happens. So that is how this entire block is created, and the blocks are chained together. That becomes a chain. And that is why the name of this technology is blockchain. This is pretty much similar to your pointers, which we have all studied in C language, right?
Sir,
Yes.
sir, as you said, there is a provision of insertion.
Right.
So we need to create a new transaction and then append it to the current network.
There is no appended. The transaction will be recorded as it is. If the block is full, then it will create a new block. If the block is not full, it will record in the same block. That is fine.
Okay, but somehow we need to tell that previous transaction is obsolete. Do not consider it.
No. There is no obsolete transaction in blockchain. It is always recorded. It is a job of historian. That is the element, or that is the entity which keeps a track of every record, every transaction happened between two entities. So that's why you will be able to see the final figure. But the records will show that, okay, previously it was 120 and now it is 100.
But then how a particular, the person whose job is this, how he will figure out that these two are, the second one is the correct version of the first one? He
See,
may consider that.
See, basically, what my point is, the last one is the final transaction, right? That is 100 transaction. The value is 100. The previous one was 120. So let me explain you why this or how this works. Maybe last year, a kid from Rajkot changed his number from to get an admission. So he swapped with some other guy who was in first 50 and got an admission. But the hack was poor and it was caught by the authorities, and they swap it back. Why? Because he should have left some digital footprint or something like that, and that they were able to trace back. Suppose if they were not able to trace back the entire transaction, what will happen, Payal?
Then that person will get admission,
and the person who is supposed to have get that admission will not get the admission.
Yes.
Right? So the point is, because there is no record, if you go to database, very simple query to database, what will be shown? The current record. According to that current record, that hacker has to get admission because there is no previous record. But in blockchain, let's say now the blockchain is in place. Now he has done the same thing. Somehow he has done the same thing. Now what happens when the user tries to do that? If there is an ambiguity in the transaction, because the one who lost his number definitely is going to call the authority. So they will check that, okay, what was the transaction history on this particular entity? And they get that, okay, this is the transaction history, and it can be traced back that, okay, the value was changed by this. So this is the simplest example. Normally it doesn't happen because the resources required to change it has to be more than 50%. And if you invest that many resources in terms of computers, which are like very high powered machines, the amount you are getting in return becomes useless. And that is why there is not a single incident recorded ever in terms of permissioned blockchain that any hacking ever happened. Now for that, there are certifications. So only certified nodes are able to change. But yes, if a person who is working at that particular place and he does a mischievous transaction, then that is possible. But again, with this transaction history, we are able to trace back to the origin of transaction, and we can prevent the hacks. I believe it is enough for you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So now block structure, which we have seen just now, timestamp, at what time the block is recorded. Nonce is particularly a random number, which is there, a random number from 1 to whatever number they have decided. Root hash, that is combined all the hashings becomes a final root hash. And that is why I said that any slight change in any of the transaction will change the root hash, and that will the block will be discarded by the other you can say nodes. Previous hash is the previous block's address, and these blocks are connected to have a block chain. So that is how the block structure. So if you can see over here, these one transaction hash, then hash one, and then transaction root. So any change in any of these transaction, let's say 1, 2, 3 or 0, this root will be changed. And as soon as the root will be changed, the address produced over here will be changed. So this block will not be a part. So that they will replace the block. They will just discard that block. They will sync again to retrieve from some other node to get the original block 11, and you are good to go. So any transaction which is not a part of this transaction, it will not be accepted. This happens automatically. I just explained in bit detail so that you can understand how that entire thing functions. Now hashing, as I discussed earlier, is a one-way ticket. So whatever you hash or whatever the original value, you can never get back to that original value. That is fast computation, and that basically it is known as avalanche effect. So what happens is, like avalanche cannot be reversed. Once it goes down only, and withstand collisions. So basically, once the amount of the length of hashing is fixed, even Sunil to hashing is the same number of you can say characters. To Sunil Kapadia to hashing is always the same number of characters. So you will never know, you will never be able to guess the origin number of characters, and that is why it can withstand collisions. Now, today's topic, you must be worried that I'm just talking about other things, but all I was talking about Hyperledger Fabric only, and this is how the entire Hyperledger Fabric world is created. And it is extremely necessary for all of you to understand this technology, these terms very clearly, because when you try to develop on your own, or maybe when you try to become a part of this organization and everything, you have to, if you don't understand this thing, it will be very difficult to you can say work in this technology, because by far in my last 13 years of experience, by far this is the most complex technology I've ever seen in terms of implementation, in terms of development, in terms of deployment, in terms of making a client understand the entire thing, how it functions and everything around it, right? Now, let me just brief you about different organization which I'm a part of. GBA, that is Government Business Blockchain Association. It is a non-government organization from USA, and they have now presence in India also. And if you become a member of that organization, you will be you will have resources. You will be able to connect with different people who are there in this particular domain, and it will provide you a different mindset. It will even अगर आपके पास कुछ idea है, तो they are ready to even give grants also. I am the technical lead of Ahmedabad chapter of this organization. So if you ever want to discuss or anything, you can always contact Payal and she will let me know. So the point is, why am I saying this? Because it is an important resource to look over. You have to being an academics, if it is free, then you should join, right? So that is the reason. And the one more resource is Hyperledger Fabric user network is also in India, based out of Hyderabad, and also you can join. I believe Rocket Chat is the place from where you can join. I'm the owner of particular Ahmedabad user group also. So why am I saying is, I'm not just broadcasting what am I interested in. I'm just telling so that you can have a better understanding in terms of resources. You can connect to these people and you can learn something new. So that is the only reason. Now, Hyperledger Fabric. So again, it's an open source enterprise grade. Enterprise grade is the important word over here. Enterprise grade permissioned distributed ledger technology. We have all seen what is distributed ledger technology. It is highly modular and configurable. The way the current architecture in the world is moving, microservices architecture or plug and play architecture. The reason is pretty simple. आप अगर एक बार कोई डेवलप करते हो तो थोड़ा टाइम लगता है, लेट्स से 6 महीना 1 साल लगता है, आपके डेवलपमेंट एफर्ट्स लगते हैं, आपका पैसा इन्वेस्ट होता है. अगर एवरी टाइम आपको वही प्रोसेस फिर से करनी पड़े, देन इट इज यूजलेस to have computers, right? So that is the reason that this thing, the entire world is talking about modules. Create modules so that people people can use those modules. The one-time investment is there only, and then you can use those modules again and again, which will impact on two things. You will save money and you will have a speed, you can say faster delivery to the market. And that is why this modular and configurable architecture is in place, specifically for Hyperledger Fabric. Then Fabric is the first distributed ledger platform to support smart contracts authored in general purpose languages like Java, Go, Node.js, and in every other. Currently, I believe they are working on Python too, but currently we are going to see the today's installation and everything is around Go. And Node.js is involved because certain libraries involved or depend on Node.js. Now, Fabric can leverage consensus protocols. Basically, they do not require a native cryptocurrency. That means BAFT or RAFT, which we'll see in the next lecture, that how this entire consensus protocol came into picture and why they completely wanted to avoid this thing. Now, if you remember, I told you that it takes 8 minutes today to record a transaction in this particular Ethereum world or Bitcoin or any other. They should have reduced in other coins, but for Ethereum it is 8 minutes. Now, if you do something like that in private network, it doesn't work. For that, it is an immediate transaction, right? So the point is, because they avoid this cryptocurrency